Hi, this is Erin with Transformed by His Truth. I wanted to do a quick video on what's going on with Netanyahu and Israel with the ceasefire and all that. It says Netanyahu faces ceasefire, split cabinet as Blinken visits. As the U.S. Secretary of State worked toward a Gaza ceasefire on a visit to Israel Wednesday, a major Tel Aviv newspaper offered a front-page summary of his challenge. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu with key cabinet colleagues and the headline, "Who is in charge here?" On one side was hard-right National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir saying if Israel doesn't invade the southern Gaza city of Rafah, Netanyahu understands perfectly well what that means. On the other were centrist ministers labeling that blackmail. Anthony Blinken met Netanyahu before heading to the Gaza border to be briefed on the flow of humanitarian aid into the besieged enclave where Israel has fought a nearly 7-month war after a Hamas invasion that killed 1,200 and abducted 240 people. More than 34,000 Palestinians have been killed in Israel's offensive, according to health officials in the Hamas-run enclave. I tend to believe that that's an exaggerated figure because it's according to the health officials in the Hamas-run enclave. The figures don't differentiate between combatants and civilians, and Israeli claims a third of them are fighters. After the Netanyahu meeting, the secretary's spokesperson said that he discussed the need to avoid further expansion of the conflict and updated the prime minister on ongoing efforts to ensure a lasting, sustainable peace in the region. The secretary reiterated the United States' clear position on Rafah. Even if Netanyahu manages to keep his government together, recent days have underlined the challenges. The U.S. is seeking an exchange of hostages for prisoners and a pause that would lead to the end of the war. Linked to this are efforts for eventual ties between Israel and Saudi Arabia and steps toward an independent Palestinian state. Before meeting with Netanyahu, Blinken spoke to angry demonstrators outside his hotel, seeking a return of the hostages, saying, "Bringing your loved ones home is at the heart of everything we're trying to do. This is a very strong proposal on the table right now. Hamas needs to say yes and needs to get this done." It is increasingly unclear whether Netanyahu can accept any deal and stay in power. National leaders Bezalel Smotrich and Ben-Gvir, who hold the key to his government's survival, say they'll walk out if he delays a Rafah invasion and releases hundreds of Palestinian prisoners. Israel says thousands of Hamas fighters are entrenched in Rafah. Centrists, led by Benny Gantz, who joined the war cabinet after the October 7th attack, argue that the government will lose its legitimacy if it doesn't pull all its efforts into getting the 130 hostages, some of whom are dead, released and worry about Rafah later. Netanyahu appears to be trying to have it both ways. On Tuesday, he held a meeting of hostage families and relatives of soldiers killed in the fighting, that the idea that Israel will stop the war before achieving all of its goals is out of the question. "We will enter Rafah and will eliminate the Hamas battalions there with or without a deal," unquote. Hamas, considered a terrorist organization by the U.S. and European Union, has yet to respond to the proposal. According to an Israeli official quoted in Haaretz newspaper, it would stop fighting for some weeks, release 33 hostages, permit Gazans to return home in the northern part of the enclave, and release hundreds of prisoners, some of whom have been convicted of murder. Israel news site Ynet says the proposal discusses a year-long ceasefire with steps toward a Palestinian state. Winston Churchill said wars are not won by ceasefires, and he was right. This is not the way people wage war. Never in any other country are they asked to not only do a ceasefire, but get civilians out of the way before they attack. This is not heard of. This only happens with Israel, and that just proves that Israel is a prophetic place in God's plan, and he will have his way with such things that are going on. Finance Minister Smotrich said Tuesday the government will lose its right to exist if it refrains from invading Rafah and agrees to any proposal that keeps Hamas intact. He would be willing to pay a price to save Israel from such existential danger. Ben-Gvir has voted against a previous ceasefire in November that saw more than 100 Israelis and foreign nationals released from Gaza, along with several hundred Palestinian prisoners, most of whom are terrorists. Yair Lapid, head of the Israeli opposition, said he'd spoken to Blinken and told him that Netanyahu has no political excuse not to go to the deal for the return of the abductees. He has a majority in the people. He has a majority in the Knesset, and if necessary, I will make sure he has a majority in the government. Lapid's party has 24 seats in the 120-seat parliament and has said before he joined the government for something specific, like a hostage deal before seeking new elections. A party official said Netanyahu has never approached Lapid on the issue. Meanwhile, the Israeli army is completing preparations for an operation in Rafah, where more than 1 million Gazans are taking shelter. It says tens of thousands of tents are being set up north of Rafah as safe zones for civilians before any invasion. U.S. officials, however, say they've no serious plan to protect civilians so far. How can you say that? They've got more than 40,000 tents set up to bring in people who are running from Rafah so that they don't get bombed. Who does this? Nobody does this in war. Nobody provides escape for the innocent civilians, if they are really all innocent, to a place of refuge before they attack. It's unheard of. So it's just Israel is being expected to commit all these crazy plans, and where they just want to, if they want to eliminate Hamas, because Hamas does not want a two-state solution. Hamas doesn't want to live side by side with Israel. Hamas wants the death of the Israelis from the river to the sea. That is what that thing means. And not only that, we have people here in America. There are terrorist factions committing atrocities on college campuses. They're beating up Israeli people. They're keeping people from being able to go to Israeli people from being able to go to their classes. They're sticking their Hamas and Hezbollah and whatever flags all over our national monuments. What's the matter with our country? Why doesn't Biden do something about this? Why doesn't he arrest and deport all these people that have come over the border in Mexico to start nothing but trouble here? Our president has a lot on his plate to deal with, but I'm telling you what, if he doesn't deal with this the way it should be dealt with, God will deal with him. And that's all I have to say. Thank you for coming to my channel. I thank you that you either leave comments or subscribe. I thank you for taking the time to read to listen to my article. Thank you, and have a good day.